Look, I'm about to show you something that is going to piss off every American motorcycle purist watching this video, but somebody needs to say it. You can walk into a dealership right now and drop $15,000 on a mid-level Harley Sportster. Or, in many global markets in some US regions, you can get a Chinese adventure bike with comparable performance, modern tech, and a 3-year warranty for $4,000 to $6,000, often less than half the cost of American or European bikes. In real terms, one American bike can cost as much as 2 to 4 Chinese bikes, depending on class and market. Now, before you start typing "Buy American" in the comments, hear me out. This is not about patriotism. This is about your wallet and what you are actually getting for your money. Because while you've been ignoring Chinese motorcycles as cheap knockoffs, they have been quietly building bikes that match US specs at prices American manufacturers cannot touch. And the gap is not closing. It is getting wider. Let me be clear. This does not mean American motorcycles are dead. It means the middle of the market is disappearing, and Chinese brands are the reason. I am breaking down exactly why US motorcycle brands are getting destroyed on price, innovation speed, and technology. The math is brutal, the timeline is worse, and if you're planning to buy a bike in the next few years, you need to understand what is actually happening in this market. Let's start with the numbers that should terrify every United States manufacturer. In many markets, a CF Moto 800 MT adventure with full fairings, TFT display, ride modes, and ABS lands between $4,000 and $6,000. A Harley Pan America 1250 with similar features costs $17,000. A Triumph Tiger 900 costs $14,000. You are 3 to 4 times more for the American or European badge. Yes, prices vary by region and incentives, but the ratio is what matters. Here is what is actually driving that price gap, and it is not what the dealers want you to believe. Chinese manufacturers have a labor cost advantage that is structural and permanent. A factory worker in China makes a fraction of what a United Auto Workers member in Milwaukee earns, but that is just the start. The real advantage is supply chain integration. Companies like CF Moto and Zontes own or control their entire production chain, from raw materials to final assembly. They are not buying components from 50 different suppliers across 3 continents. Everything happens in the same industrial zone. If you think this is niche, look at the sales growth and dealer expansion these brands have had in the last 2 years. This is not a small or fringe trend anymore. Then there are government subsidies. The Chinese government treats motorcycle manufacturing as strategic industrial policy. They are subsidizing everything, from factory construction to R&D to export shipping. United States manufacturers get tax breaks if they are lucky. Chinese brands get aggressive state-backed industrial support that lowers their costs. And wait until you see where your extra money actually goes. It is not the metal. Now let us talk about what you are actually paying for with that US price premium. You are funding massive dealer networks with prime real estate and full service departments. You are paying for Super Bowl commercials and sponsorship deals. You are covering the salaries of executives who make more in a year than most riders spend on bikes in a lifetime. You are also paying the heritage tax, that extra $5,000 because the tank says Harley-Davidson instead of Cove. Here is the markup reality that dealers do not want you calculating. By the time an American bike hits the showroom, there are layers of cost baked in: logistics, dealer margin, marketing, and overhead that a lot of Chinese brands avoid. A Chinese bike in that $4,000 to $6,000 range might cost $2,000 to $3,000 to build. The cost per unit is lower. Their margin is smaller in dollars, but their volume is massive. But here is what really matters: total cost of ownership. Even if you budget an extra $1,000 over a few years for potential repairs or upgrades, you are still ahead by thousands compared to buying the premium American bike. You could replace major components and still come out winning. People who say you get what you pay for often ignore current quality data. Modern Chinese manufacturers are using Japanese electronics, European suspension components, and their own engines built on proven, widely understood architectures. Are they perfect? No. Are they $11,000 worse? Not even close. Here is the financial truth that should change how you think about your next purchase. For the cost of one premium American touring bike, you could buy 2 or 3 well-equipped Chinese bikes across different categories and still have money left for gear and insurance. Multiple riding experiences versus one American badge. The math just doesn't work in favor of US brands anymore at the entry and mid-level, and it is not getting better. But here is where it gets worse for US manufacturers, and this is the part that should terrify anyone who thinks American brands will catch up. Chinese motorcycle companies are operating on product development cycles that US brands literally cannot match. Chinese manufacturers are iterating on roughly half the development cycle of American brands, releasing updates and new models, while US bikes are still waiting on approvals and dealer agreements. By the time a US manufacturer releases a new model, Chinese brands have already iterated twice. The reason is vertical integration on a scale American companies abandoned decades ago. When CF Moto wants to test a new frame design, they walk down the hall to their own metallurgy lab. When they need a new ECU map, their software team is in the same building as the dyno. When they are ready for production, the factory is next door. US manufacturers are coordinating with suppliers across multiple states and countries, waiting weeks for prototypes, dealing with shipping delays and contract negotiations. Look at what is actually hitting showrooms. CF Moto released the 800 MAT, then the 800 MAT Sport, then the 450 MAT, then updated all 3 models in the span of 30 months. Harley took 6 years to go from Pan America concept to production bike. Zonti's dropped 4 completely new models last year alone. Indian is still selling the Scout platform they introduced in 2015 with minor updates. Here is why US brands are structurally stuck in slow motion. They have legacy dealer agreements that require 18 months notice before discontinuing models. They have union contracts that make rapid production changes expensive and complicated. They have shareholders who demand predictable product cycles and proven return on investment before approving new development. Chinese manufacturers have none of these constraints. They can kill an underperforming model in 6 months and replace it with something new. Then there's the tech adoption gap that's embarrassing. Electronic suspension, multiple ride modes, full-color TFT displays with smartphone connectivity. This stuff is standard equipment on $5,000 Chinese sport bikes. You want those features on a Harley? You are paying for the CVO trim level at $30,000. Chinese brands are treating modern electronics as baseline expectations. US brands are treating them as premium upsells. Now here is the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. Chinese manufacturers have a massive advantage by building engines based on proven, expired, or widely understood designs, avoiding the cost of ground-up research and development that Western manufacturers absorb. They are not spending 5 years and $50 million developing a new parallel twin engine from scratch. They are using established architecture, making improvements, and putting it into production fast. Is it effective? Absolutely. This speed matters to you because you are buying outdated technology at premium prices. That 2024 Harley Sportster you're looking at, the core engine design is from 2021. The electronics package is from 2020. The suspension components are from 2019. You are paying $15,000 for 3-year-old tech. The Chinese bike next to it has components designed last year, incorporating lessons learned from this year's racing season. The development speed gap is not closing, it is accelerating. Chinese manufacturers are getting faster, while US brands are getting slower, buried under legacy costs and corporate bureaucracy. Speaking of tech, Let's talk about where China is outpacing US brands in key areas, and this is going to decide the next decade of motorcycling, whether you ride electric bikes or not. China dominates the global battery supply chain, from refining to cells, by a massive margin. They own the lithium refineries, the cathode plants, the cell manufacturing, the whole supply chain. US manufacturers are buying batteries from Chinese suppliers or paying massive premiums for limited domestic production. Here's what that dominance looks like on the showroom floor. You can buy dozens of Chinese electric motorcycles right now for under $5,000. Real bikes with 60-mile range, highway-capable speed, and actual warranties. Livewire, Harley's electric brand, is $22,000. Zero Motorcycles, the US electric leader, ranges from $13,000 to $19,000 depending on the model. The price gap on electric is even worse than combustion bikes. But here's the real problem for US manufacturers. They are protecting existing investments in internal combustion engines. Harley spent decades perfecting the V-twin's sound and feel. Indian built their entire brand identity around Thunderstroke engines. Switching to electric means cannibalizing their own product lines and admitting their core technology is obsolete. Chinese manufacturers have no such loyalty. They will build whatever sells. Then, there is dealer resistance that is killing US electric adoption. Harley dealers make massive profit margins on service and parts for internal combustion engines. Oil changes, valve adjustments, clutch replacements, that is their revenue stream. Electric bikes need almost no maintenance. Dealers are actively discouraging customers from buying electric because it destroys their service business model. Chinese brands selling direct-to-consumer online do not have this conflict. The infrastructure reality makes it worse. China built charging and battery swap infrastructure for two-wheelers at a scale the US simply does not have. Every major city has networks designed for motorcycles and scooters. The US has limited electric vehicle chargers, mostly designed for cars, with almost nothing optimized for two-wheelers. Chinese riders can actually use electric bikes for real transportation. American riders are stuck with range anxiety and nowhere to charge. Here is what nobody wants to admit. The performance and range gap is closing faster than anyone expected. 5 years ago, electric motorcycles were toys with 30-mile range and terrible performance. Today, Chinese manufacturers are building bikes with performance that was laughable 5 years ago, but is now good enough for daily riding, with acceleration and range improving every model year, and prices still thousands below US electric offerings. In 2 more years, they will hit price parity with equivalent combustion bikes and competitive performance. When that happens, US manufacturers have no answer ready. They have concept bikes and press releases. Chinese brands have production lines and distribution networks. The electric transition is coming, whether US companies are ready or not. And they are already 5 years behind with no way to catch up. Why does this matter even if you hate electric bikes and never want to own one? Because market share loss in electric means less money for future internal combustion development. Every Chinese electric bike sold is one less combustion bike a US manufacturer sells. That lost revenue means smaller research and development budgets, fewer new models, and higher prices on the bikes you actually want. The electric revolution funds everything else, and US brands are losing that war badly. But none of this matters if the bikes fall apart. So let's talk quality, honestly. Now I know what you're thinking about quality, so let's address the elephant in the room without the usual bullshit. Yes, early Chinese motorcycles were absolute garbage. The 2000s and early 2010s bikes were poorly engineered, used terrible materials, and fell apart if you looked at them wrong. If your only experience with Chinese bikes is from 15 years ago, I get why you're skeptical. But here's the current reality that is inconvenient for everyone clinging to old stereotypes. Modern Chinese manufacturers are using Bosch ABS systems, KYB suspension, Keihin fuel injection, and Continental tires, the same Japanese and European components that go on bikes costing 3 times as much. A CF Moto 800 MT has the same Bosch ABS as BMW. The quality gap on core components has disappeared. That said, fit and finish, long-term corrosion resistance, and dealer support still vary wildly by brand, so you can't treat Chinese bike as one category. Let's look at actual reliability data instead of assumptions. Based on dealer-reported data and owner surveys, newer Chinese brands are seeing first-year warranty claim rates that land in the same general range as some American and European manufacturers, higher than Honda, but not dramatically worse than Harley or KTM. Owner surveys show satisfaction ratings in the 70 to 75% range. Not perfect, but not the disaster everyone assumes. Here is what is really interesting. Compare Chinese quality issues to American quality problems that nobody wants to talk about. Harley has had oil leak issues on Milwaukee 8 engines. Indian has had electrical problems on multiple model years. Polaris recalled thousands of Indian motorcycles for brake failures. Nobody is perfect, and American manufacturers have their own quality disasters that get memory hold because of brand loyalty. The parts availability question is legitimate, and it is where Chinese bikes still struggle. You are not going to find CF Moto parts at every corner shop. Dealer networks are thin. If something breaks, you might wait weeks for components to ship from overseas. This is a real disadvantage, and anyone telling you otherwise is lying. But how often do modern bikes actually break? If you keep up with basic maintenance, most riders go years without needing anything beyond consumables. Then, there is the resale value reality that changes the math completely. Yes, Chinese bikes depreciate faster than American brands. A 3-year-old CF Moto might be worth 40% of its original price, while a Harley holds 60%. You lose less actual money on a $5,000 bike that drops to $2,000 than on a $15,000 bike that drops to $9,000. Depreciation percentage does not matter. Depreciation dollars do. Here is my honest assessment after watching this market for 5 years. Chinese motorcycles are not perfect. You will probably have a minor issue or two. Parts might take longer. Resale value will be lower, but the quality gap is closing fast while the price gap stays massive. A Chinese bike in that $4,000 to $6,000 range with competitive reliability compared to an American bike at $12,000 to $15,000 is still the better value for most riders. The question is not whether Chinese bikes are as good as American bikes. The question is whether American bikes are 4 times better. The answer to that is absolutely not. I have talked to riders who bought Chinese bikes expecting to flip them in a year and ended up keeping them because nothing else made financial sense anymore. That is the shift happening right now. Here is the bottom line on where this leaves American riders making actual buying decisions. If you are shopping for an entry-level or mid-tier bike under $10,000, Chinese manufacturers offer better value than anything coming out of Milwaukee or Springfield. Sport bike, adventure bike, dual sport. You are getting modern features at half the price with acceptable quality. That is just math. But here is when you should still buy American. If you need a bike that holds resale value because you trade every few years, American brands win. If you live somewhere without a Chinese bike dealer within 200 miles and you cannot rent yourself, parts availability matters more than price. If you are buying a premium touring bike over $20,000 where comfort and refinement justify the cost, American and European manufacturers still have an edge. Now let us kill the patriotism argument once and for all. American manufacturers are not making purely American bikes anymore anyway. Harley builds bikes in Thailand. Indian sources components globally. The phrase "made in the United States" often means final assembly happened in America with parts from 12 different countries. You are not supporting American workers by paying double. You are supporting American executive compensation packages. The market trend is already showing you the future. Indian buyers switched to Chinese brands 5 years ago. European riders are following. US buyers are the last holdouts, and that is changing fast. Walk into any motorcycle forum and you will see the shift happening in real time. People are tired of paying a heritage tax for outdated technology. Here is why US brands will not and cannot compete on price at the entry and mid-market. Their legacy costs are structural and permanent. Union contracts, dealer networks, pension obligations, and regulatory compliance are not line items they can cut. By the time an American bike hits the showroom, there are layers of cost baked in that Chinese manufacturers simply do not carry. No amount of efficiency improvement closes that structural gap. The coming consolidation is going to be brutal. Harley will survive by going premium only, selling lifestyle and experience to wealthy riders who do not care about value. Indian might make it if Polaris keeps funding them. Smaller US brands, most will not exist in 10 years. The mid-market is gone, taken by Chinese manufacturers who can profitably sell bikes at prices US companies cannot even build them for. What US manufacturers must do is stop pretending they can compete on volume and price. Focus on the premium experience. Build bikes for riders who want the best, not the cheapest. Invest in technology and refinement that actually justifies the price premium. Harley is trying this with the Pan America, and it is working. Indian needs to follow. Your action plan for evaluating Chinese bikes without getting burned. Research dealer locations before you buy. Check parts availability for your specific model. Read owner forums for common issues. Budget extra for potential repairs. Test ride before committing. Be honest about whether you need perfection or just good enough at a third of the price. The Chinese advantage is not temporary, it is structural and permanent. So here is your core takeaway. Chinese manufacturers have structural advantages in cost, speed, and electric technology that US brands cannot overcome at entry and mid-level markets. The gap is widening, not closing. The uncomfortable truth is this: patriotism does not pay your bike loan. Here's my question for you. Would you rather own one premium American bike or two well-equipped Chinese bikes for the same money, and why? Drop your answer in the comments. Subscribe for more brutal truths about this industry every week.